We got to talk about the big banks and a lot of the small banks because right now the Bay Area is having some of the biggest bank closures. It's not looking so great because it seems like a lot of American banks, especially the top five biggest, are downgrading a ton of office space in preparation for something pretty catastrophic because I've never seen this many bank branch closures and HQ closures. So over 20 Bay Area Bank of America locations, including ATMs, branches, are all closing down. This is a big deal because this isn't like a small number. And a lot of these locations, they spent millions of dollars just to set up. But then after a few years, especially for 2023, they just started shutting these down. This is something that I've never seen before, including ATMs. In the Bay Area, it's not just Bank of America, but Wells Fargo, Schwab, JP Morgan, they're all closing a lot of these branches. And it seems like Bank of America just simply wants to move themselves online. They kind of see how bad the commercial real estate sector is. They don't really want to spend a bunch of money renting these properties and buying these properties. This is why the Bay Area's vacancies are just one of the highest in the world for first world countries. Now, the closures represent a small percentage of its locations, but that number is increasing every single day. These are some of the most popular locations in San Francisco and the rest of the Bay Area, all being closed down. And Wells Fargo is doing something even crazier. They're straight up selling massive office towers for insane losses. Now, the only reason why would anyone sell their office tower for a whopping $60 million loss is if you think the prices will go down even further. So it's a fire sale essentially, right? The 13-story financial office tower listed for $160 million last year just sold for almost 75% off. Sold for $45 million bucks. And the worst part is Wells Fargo bought this building 20 years ago for a little over $100 million. Imagine you bought it $100 million 2 decades ago when money was worth so much more than now, and then you sell it for like over a 50% loss. That's absolutely painful. The reason why Wells Fargo is doing this is they're kind of foreshadowing like a massive decrease in commercial real estate, especially with what happened to Europe's Signet Group, who toppled a bunch of commercial real estate properties. I kind of see why Wells Fargo is making this move. In fact, Wells Fargo essentially is predicting an even lower drop in price in terms of commercial real estate. Office towers in San Francisco, they're already super worthless. They're already like 40, 50, 60% off. But imagine 90, 95% off. Imagine whole buildings foreclosing and selling for literally pennies on the dollar. That's what Wells Fargo is predicting, which is some really scary stuff. And it's already happening in Europe. Signet Group is a multi-billion-dollar company in Europe. It's an Austria company, and they have a lot of debt, a lot of creditors, and they're defaulting on almost 6 billion USD in terms of office loans and retail malls, all these kind of stuff. And it's going to cause a domino effect because they're selling off properties like crazy, especially in the office sector, just to raise cash and capital because they can't get any new funding from new investors. Those talks have completely failed, and now they're in a gutter. So Wells Fargo, they're kind of starting to see a massive, scary domino effect, right? That building fails, and now a whole company fails. And that company fails, it's going to affect several small banks, creditors, and other multimillionaires. So yeah, selling this office building for a fat loss is probably a good idea because the losses are probably going to get even worse. And check this out. Bank of America, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, all closing dozens of branches, not just in the Bay Area, guys. It's around the country. Banks are closing dozens and dozens of stores in less desirable areas to cut financial costs and financial pressure because high interest rates are very scary. Distressed commercial mortgages on office buildings, that's also very scary. So they're already closing a bunch of branch offices nationwide just for one thing, to save money. Because if you close a branch, you also fire about 5 to 15 different employees in there. And those employees don't have jobs anymore, which is leading to a massive jobless crisis. Jobless claims spike. And I think, personally, unemployment is rising for real this time because it went from 3.3 a few months ago to 3.9. And rumors are we're heading towards 4.2, 4.3. Everyone is banking on the fact the Feds will be cutting rates next year by the summer of 2024. But let's be real, they're probably not going to do that. And if they're not going to do that, jobless claims will continue to increase. And that's going to cause a lot of financial pressure for a lot of these banks. Banks right now for 2023 already sold off a lot of properties, closed down branches, and even ATMs just to save money. And Schwab is by far one of the biggest culprits of this. They've pretty much fired off a bunch of employees, and they even downsize their HQ in San Francisco just to save money. From San Diego to Chicago, they've closed down a bunch of stores. Schwab is now headed towards saving $500 million a year, which it could essentially put that to good use. And Schwab is also closing down their longtime downtown Milwaukee branch. These are all big branches that banks generally don't shut down. Remember, bank branches and bank offices, it costs them millions and millions of dollars every single day just to operate and open up. So if they ever want to open these stores again, it's going to cost them tremendous amounts of money. And they really had to think it through before closing out these branches. And they have think it through. And now banks are closing these branches like there's no tomorrow. Schwab closed down their Milwaukee branch, telling clients to seek services at other branches. And they're pretty much consolidating at this point. And look at this, banks are quietly cutting thousands of employees, and even more layoffs are coming in. The next 5 biggest US banks have cut a combined 20,000 positions, and they will continue to fire more employees as time goes on. And well, let me tell you what's going on. A lot of these banks, like I said before, they need to save as much money as possible. They're all very scared about what 2024 has in store. So might as well cut employees, cut real estate and branches, and save as much money as possible. Sell some stock, because stocks are at a very high rate. Because 2024, if the Feds don't cut rates, which there's a high chance of them not doing so, we're going to be seeing a lot of small regional banks failing. Because small regional banks also have immense exposure in commercial real estate, which the annual FDIC review finds at the top $3 trillion after rising every single region. There's too many silly people betting on the fact that remote work is going to die out, but remote work is here to stay. But let's just see what happens. A lot of these investors are betting big on commercial real estate, taking out loans from small regional banks, and that's pretty troubling. So why are a lot of individual investors and construction companies building commercial real estate, but then you got Fargo and you got JP Morgan and BFA all closing down their office buildings and branches? So there's a big contradiction here, right? It seems like the big banks are not committing in commercial real estate, but the small regional banks, they don't care. They just want to get some loans out and make some money from this high interest rate situation. And big construction companies are going nutso on this commercial real estate. So we have a really scary situation, and now you have Europe's Signet Group already toppled out. This is like one of Europe's biggest hotel, mall, and construction company tycoons. And they pretty much went out with a bang. And the crazy part is Signet also is like owner of 50% of the Chrysler building in New York City. Just shows you how big their impact is. And yeah, jobless claims are going up. Big banks are cutting employees. This is all scary stuff. This is not good stuff at all. And I think it's going to take a few months before we see even more drama unfolding. Already, big tycoons in the real estate market, they're defaulting on multi-billion-dollar loans. It's getting worse, guys.